Well, I know another guy who's waiting. It's MicroMike, our guy. And again, you know what? Shout out to Mike, man. We talk about Mike. That dude is an absolute legend. Set the tone for YouTube, a legend in the YouTube space, and he's kindly enough to join us like he does, and he does a great job. So please welcome in MicroMike. Link is in the description to check out his stuff if you haven't already. So let's welcome him in. Mike, what's going on, my man?
Hey, what's going on, fellas? What is going on? Thanks for having me back on. Super stoked, man.
Hey, Mike, I got to start, man. This week, they play the Chiefs in preseason, and Andy Reid said that they plan to play starters for at least the first half. And Dan said he's going to play some starters on the defensive line. We asked the question: what are some guys you're looking to see this Saturday, assuming they do play some starters on the defensive line? But anyone specifically you got your eye on this week?
Oh, I'm definitely keeping my eye on Marcus Davenport. I want to see what he can bring to this defensive line. We signed him in free agency. There's been questions there about the opposite of Aiden Hutchinson. It'd be a great opportunity to see what he can do against their starters. A really good team, obviously the Super Bowl contender. So if he can get out there, get some reps, then we have an idea of what he can bring and see how well he is progressing, because there's a lot of questions with him. I'd like to see Traquan Smith just to see if he's alive and a real human being. Also, I'm dead serious. I don't know that he's actually I've never even seen him yet or anything. But I would like to see the wide receiver battle here, specifically Donovan Peoples-Jones, Therese Fountain. I love Isaiah Williams. Who is going to break out in this position? It's so important that we get some sort of idea. And just like Dan Campbell, we just don't know at this point. And I think that is a reflection, too, of Nate Sudfeld, who sucks. And I'm definitely for 3, I'm going to go with the quarterback play. I mean, how can you not be watching the quarterback play? Last week with Nate Sudfeld, it was awful. Can we get some quarterback to come out, whether it be, Jake from State Farm out there doing his thing, or, obviously Hendon Hooker, which we're all watching on Hendon Hooker to see what he can do. Can he progress? Will he slide? That is a question there. And then Colby Sorsdale finally be a guy who I'm really looking to see, because we need to know about the backup tackle position for this football team. The guards, okay, here and there, but we're talking about tackle. That's a big deal. So I'm going to continue to watch what he does on Saturday.
Mike, I just want to kind of expand on the wide receiver kind of thing that you brought up there, and just kind of a little more in depth there. And I feel like I talk about this a lot on the show, and I've been the one that's been a little bit worried as we get going. A couple months ago, I was like, hey, I don't know about DPJ during minicamp. And then as it keeps going on, it doesn't feel like that wide receiver 4 or 5. And it might not be as big of a deal as we keep talking about it, because the depth on this team is so good. But what are your thoughts on that? Like that room, like if no one stands out, do you think they should go out and get someone? Like where do you stand on that, Mike? I'm interested to know.
Yeah, I was just talking about that on the Huge Show. We were talking about that wide receiver, and I am with you. I am concerned. It's not necessarily for the starters, though. But what if St. Brown goes down for a game? What if Jameson Williams goes down for a game? That means that depth that you have at number 4 is going to have to step up. And that's concerning, because we're a team so close to potentially being in the Super Bowl. It's not having one player that could be the difference between making it or breaking it. And so that does concern me. I mean, last year in the playoffs, we didn't even have Khalif Raymond. So this is something that we have to think about, not just for the now, but going forward. So I completely agree with you right there. And, if we don't get this situation taken care of, there could be a lot of issues. Now, the Lions can either have somebody that step up, like a Therese Fountain, Donovan Peoples-Jones, or like a Robert Woods potentially getting cut from the Houston Texans. I think that's something that the Lions can do, because when you look at a player like Robert Woods, he already has connection with Jared Goff. He's not looking to be even really probably a number 3, but him as a number 4, I think that would be a good compliment and just set this team a whole. But I am concerned with that wide receiver spot.
Yeah, and Mike, obviously, my guy JMO has hit the ground running in training camp. I just want to hear your expectations for him this upcoming season. Obviously, he's been going kind of nuts right now, and the connection between him and Jared Goff certainly seems to be there. So just expectations for JMO this year.
He's looking scary, Mike. He's looking scary.
He is looking, and you know what? You guys are making it to where my expectations are going through the roof. I started the season 800 yards. I think that's what I was thinking before OTA's minicamp, and then training camp where it just went on steroids, and he's just been absolutely dominating. It is not just close. He is 2 yards away from the closest DB, and this has been a consistent basis. He's getting that breakaway speed. Everybody's saying his route running's crisper. He is bigger. He looks bigger, like thicker, like more muscle. He's confident. He's talking. My expectations now for Jameson Williams is past 1,000 yards receiving. I think if he was to get below that, it was not due to an injury related, that at that point would kind of be underwhelming. We're hearing so much that to me, he's got to take that jump now to 1,000 yards receiving. If St. Brown can get to 1,500, I think Jameson Williams, the hype train, get to 1,000.
And we kind of just talked about it, Mike, but Sion Baki, I mean, he looked like everything that the Lions wanted him to in that first preseason game. You could see him in between the tackles on the draw. He looked very natural. It honestly kind of looked David Montgomery-esque because he was running powerful, but he was still able to make 1 or 2 moves in between the tackles, and then even cut it outside to get a first down. So when you look at him and you look at Craig Reynolds, you look at Zonovan Knight, who got work, what did you take away from Baki game 1? But then as the season goes along, where do you think he kind of takes a role in this running back room?
Wow, great question, by the way. And what I saw from Vaki was extremely impressive because you got to understand the offensive line that he was working with was subpar, to say the best, during that game. The holes were minimal, but he kept breaking tackles, and he was ankle breaking, folks. The jukes was so smooth, and it was difficult for defenders to defend. Now I sit here and I picture, well, what would happen, say, if I don't know, he's with our first string offensive line? I think that he would make good plays and he'd be really effective in that role. We don't right now have that quote unquote wide receiver 3 or 4. Well, you could throw JMO out wide, bring in Vaki. I mean, that's definitely a matchup that they can exploit for sure because he's going to beat these linebackers, majority of them. And when it comes to special teams, with this new landing zone rule, it seems like it's more almost like a running play. So if he can get in there and do plays from that, maybe we get better field position from the kickoffs. Really high for Sion Vaki. And, his average in college was 7.5 yards a carry. His average this past game was 7.2 yards a carry. And you can see why. There's only so many balls that can go around with this offense. But, man, Ben Johnson can find a good spot to put him on some specific plays that really tear up defenses. So that's who I'm watching again. I want to see what he can do. I think he's already solidified himself on the team. I think I would have him probably jumping Craig Reynolds here very shortly. It wouldn't shock. If he has another performance like he did this Saturday, it would not shock me, especially against the Kansas City Chiefs, who is playing the starters, and I'm sure the second strings, when the Lions are facing, maybe their third strings are in there.
Yeah, Mike, I mean, last week we talked about Hendon Hooker making his debut, and, he got to slide. I think we all agree got to slide. You want him to stay healthy, but there's a chance he plays this week, which is probably most likely. I thought he looked just comfortable out there, Mike, looked composed. He seems like a player that, people would use the term gamer, like practice. He's been the accuracy issues and people tweeting about him struggling, and then he gets in the game, and he's an immediate upgrade of Nate Sudfeld. And I don't know if it's how bad Nate Sudfeld is, Mike, or it's Hendon Hooker displaying that maybe he could potentially, with development and more time, work up to be your backup quarterback. What'd you take away from his performance in that weather and just where you see him developing into? Do you think he can end up being a backup this year for Jared Goff, or you think that's out of the picture and they need to go elsewhere and find another guy? Because Sudfeld ain't it. We all agree.
Yeah, when it comes to the development, it really depends on Ben Johnson and Dan Campbell. Do they think that he can hold it down? That's more the X's and O's. I think physically, right, he has all the tools. But to be the backup role, you got to have a little bit more. So that's on them. If they feel comfortable with him being a QB2, great. But I'm in the belief that maybe you potentially should bring in another person in here that can help put this position down, because the last thing we need, we talked about with wide receiver, what if Goff goes down for a game and you lose a game, and now we're, instead of being the number 1 seed, we fall to the 3 seed, potentially falling back. So I'm thinking about these type of scenarios, and having a quarterback that can at least hold the fort down would be very smart. When it comes to Sudfeld and Hendon Hooker, you could clearly see the difference here. Sudfeld, who's 30 years old, been in the league for nearly a decade. In the pocket, he looked skittish. He looked nervous. It's like he's seen a deer in the headlights. He was inaccurate. He was uncomfortable. Hendon Hooker comes in. It was the complete opposite. He looked super relaxed, comfortable. It didn't look too big for him. He wasn't worried. Obviously, he was excited to be on the field when he trucked a player, but you can tell the difference. And it seems like Hendon Hooker has got the intelligence to really be a guy who we can rely on going forward. I don't know if it's going to be this year, but most definitely he's got the patience, he's got the awareness, and that's a good thing. But he, like we said, he's got to slide, because to be a backup, you got to be available. If Jared Goff goes down and you don't slide, you get hit. Now we're down to our 3rd string. That's guaranteed almost L every single time. And he needs to understand that. But sky's the limit for him. It just may take a little bit of development to continue.
And Doc, another thing too, a big thing coming out of camp, and it feels like the last few days it's been heating up a little bit, is year 2 Jack Campbell going into his 2nd year, taking a big jump. And we've had this conversation on our show a lot, and I've been, and me and Jeff actually both had him as our number 1 breakout player this year. And he was quiet for a little bit in camp, but it seems like now it's starting to pick up a little bit and kind of getting a little bit more comfortable back to his kind of normal position that he's played his whole career. What do you think of in expectations here for a guy like Jack Campbell? Do you think he's able to take that step and end up being, jumping Alex Anzalone and being the best player kind of in the middle of the defense there, or kind of where are you looking at for Jack to be in year 2?
Yeah, I still think that Alex Anzalone right now is probably going to be the better linebacker all around. The veteran, he's not making too much mistakes in the pass game. And Jack Campbell has made a couple mistakes so far, in training camp, but he's also a year 2 player, and Alex Anzalone is a veteran, right? So obviously the veteran is going to have a significant edge. But I see his development just continue to get better. He's really good in the run game, just get better in the pass. He's an instinctive player. Utilize those instincts. Don't think about it, just be instinctive. And with his 6'5" frame, I think each week he's going to progress. And by the time we hit the playoffs, it's going to be really difficult to go down the middle on the Lions defense, something that we've never said for so long, probably since 2014. So I love his development. This is generally kind of where I expected. I know a lot of people were thinking that maybe he's a bust because of the 3 other players whom we drafted out of the 4 picks last year. It's just those 3 out of those 4 picks were near Hall of Fame type of draft. So his development is exactly where I expected to be. And I think year 3, he will be the best linebacker on the field. There's no doubt about it.
Do you think that's another Pro Bowl All-Pro player that Brad has selected there?
This year for Jack Campbell, no. Year 3, I can see him being in the Pro Bowl for sure. Okay. You're seeing the development, and why I'm very convinced of this is I've seen the development out of many different players on this team when it comes to the year 3, right? We're seeing with Levi Onwuzurike, Derek Barnes last year, Futu Melifonwu. You've seen what you just talked about, Brandon Joseph, a year 2 play. All these players are developing, generally speaking. And so somebody with the wits and the caliber and the instincts of a Jack Campbell, who I was really high on at the draft, there's no doubt on my mind he'll develop as well. And he's going to be a stud.
I love that.
Mike, and we know how talented Jahmyr Gibbs is, and they've talked about him getting more reps at receiver in the slot. Is that something you want to see? Do you want to see Jahmyr Gibbs get more involved in the pass game?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see him involved in the pass game more. He's such a difference maker. He's so fast. We see what happens. He always beating the linebacker. So just imagine him maybe in a wide receiver screen, right? Or going out and doing a quick out route or going in the middle. He gets the ball, it's going to be over because he's so fast. But there is a negative to it, right? That allows him to get hit more. And that is something we don't want running backs to have because the shelf life of running back is a little bit less. But at the same time, we're trying to win a Super Bowl this year. And I think if you're trying to win a Super Bowl, you want to have the best talent on the field. And if you could put Montgomery in the backfield, Jahmyr Gibbs in the slot with St. Brown and Jameson Williams, how on God's green earth are you going to stop that? That is a nightmare. And I would like to see situations like that this year. Absolutely, no doubt about it.
Yeah, and we're about to get into it a little bit as far as the topic, but I wanted to get your opinion on it before we got you out here. The Falcons, they just brought in Justin Simmons, and you talk about bringing in Justin Simmons, you're going to line him right next to Jesse Bates, and you got A.J. Terrell. They just brought in Judon, and then the defensive line and the linebacker core, there's not anybody outside of there besides maybe Grady Jarrett that stands out, but they're very solid. So when you look at that defense, you look at Raheem Morris, he's a defensive coach. He's probably going to want to run the ball. Who do they have? Bijan Robinson. Do you think they're a threat to the NFC, or if the Lions were to see the Falcons in the playoff by some chance, do you think that's a team that you kind of be like, this is going to be a little situational, like this is going to be a close game?
Jess was talking about this again on the huge show, so it's a great topic to talk about. And I'm going to say absolutely yes. And here's the reason why. They do have talent all over there. Look at the division that they're playing in, okay? I could see a situation where they go 5-1 in the division. The Saints are not that great, right? You got the Carolina Panthers, who I think is the worst team in football. That could be a situation right there where they're 4-0. And then, obviously, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I think they match up well with them. Look at their schedule. They have a lot of scrub teams, a ton of scrub teams. We're talking about the New York Giants, bad team. They got to go against the Raiders. They got to go against the Chargers. It's all about wins and losses. And their schedule is easy. And they have upgraded the talent, both offense and defense. Could you see a situation where you get to 13 wins for the Falcons? I could see a situation like that. Absolutely. 100%. So they are a threat. Absolutely. Kyle Pitts is a really good tight end. He just doesn't have a quarterback. Drake London, I loved him coming out of USC. He's a really good wide receiver. Their offensive line of staff, Bijan Robinson, was taken before Jahmyr Gibbs. That is a good offense. And you tell me they just go ahead and get a trade for a pass rusher and pick up the best safety in the free agent market, who's a really good safety. Yeah, you got to watch out for these guys.
Mike, I just have one more quick question here. We've had this conversation with you before, just the Jake Bates situation, the kicker situation. Or where are you at on that? Or are you like, hey, this is our guy, let's move forward, and who cares about competition? Or where do you stand on this whole Jake Bates situation?
Hey, for me, it's all about kicking field goals. And look, we've seen him miss some in training camp, but the last stretch has been pretty good, even though he missed an extra point yesterday, and another is a long field goal. I want to see him get field goals and tries in this game on Saturday. I think this is a great game to do it outdoors, another outdoor game like the Giants in the bad weather. I want to see this guy kick. But I tell you what, if he can't make the easy kicks, we're talking like a 30-yard field goal, and we're starting issues with extra points, that's going to be a problem. And I do welcome competition on all fronts, and there'd be no different for Master Jake Bates.
I love that. Great stuff, Mike. We appreciate you as always. I mean, please, if you guys haven't, check out Mike's channel. Seriously, man. I went on Mike's show, man. Shows us love all the time, and he truly is just.
I gotta get you guys on there, fellas. Like, we got to do like Crunch Time invades my channel.
Ready whenever. That'd be big time.
Word, Mike. We got you. Show some love, Mike. Mike, we appreciate you as always, man. Take care. We'll talk to you very soon.
All right, take it easy, fellas. Have a good night.
Appreciate you, Mike.
Bro. There you go. MicroMike, man. I mean, I got to hold on. I got to get the.
What a
legend.